Well, hello there. It is great to see you again, and welcome back to the Retirement Playbook. I am your host and moderator, Ryan Ruff, and as always, we're going to be joined by really the star of our show, and that's Mr. Bryon Spicer of Spicer Wealth Management. He's going to be jumping aboard with us for another wealth management related discussion because that's what we tackle here on this show. And, we're really just taking the same strategies and solutions and even just conversations that Bryon is having with his clients over at Spicer Wealth Management, where we're bringing them right here to you guys on this show. And boy, do we have a nice one teed up for you guys today. We're diving into a particular strategy and solution that so many people are utilizing on a regular basis, especially given, what's been going on politically and economically and the landscape we've been facing over the last few years. So we've got a really great conversation to unpack today about a unique strategy, one that Bryon is all too familiar with, and I'm excited to get into that today. So with that being said, let's go ahead and bring Bryon aboard and get right into it. Bryon, it's good to see you this morning. How are you doing?
Good seeing you, Ryan.
Yeah, it's good to be back. We had a great inaugural episode. Here we are on the second round, and we're going to be diving into a specific strategy. And Bryon, as I was thinking about how I wanted to start the episode and the conversation off today, I kept coming back to this word uncertainty, right? And if you want to talk about uncertainty, take a look at the last few years that we've all experienced together. I mean, from a political or economic landscape, there are so many affluent families, individuals, business owners out there that have been wondering if they're making the best decisions when it comes to their finances and their portfolio. So let's start by talking today, Bryon, about what it is in your eyes that people can be doing right now to maybe help them sleep a little better at night when it comes to their portfolio and their finances overall.
Well, probably one of the easiest and quickest things to do, Ryan, is to actually go back and stress test the investments compared to the goals that the clients are trying to accomplish and make sure that everything is still in sync. It's interesting. We find when we do a lot of reviews with clients, we find that there's a disconnect there. Their goals that they're saying that they want to accomplish versus looking at their individual investment portfolios are not in sync. And there's a big disconnect there. So we call that stress testing, or we have a tool a process that we call an independent portfolio review, where we're going through that portfolio and helping them understand what their returns have actually been on a 1, 3, 5, 10-year basis, what kind of expenses they've incurred to get there, because every tool's got an expense. Some are disclosed, some are not disclosed, but net of those expenses, what did I net? And then that net compared against an industry benchmark, because an industry benchmark is like getting a C in school. And most investors, if they're taking risk with their money, they want to get a B or an A. But we find that most portfolios are in that C minus, D plus range, or sometimes even an F, depending upon what they're saying that they really want to accomplish compared to what they've actually are doing.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that this is a valuable process. It can be that snapshot really for somebody to get
Yes,
an idea on where do I stack up currently, given
right.
given the market, given those ever-changing goals that you mentioned. And this is a process that, we call them the super rich or those with even 500 million in net worth or more, they are utilizing this strategy regularly. But I want to get into the why in your eyes, Bryon. Why do you feel that this is such a valuable process in the first place, and why families and business owners and individuals should be considering it right now, given everything that we've been experiencing in our world?
Well, we've had all the uncertainty. I mean, look at the year. We're still down using the S&P 500 index as a benchmark. We're still very much down and underwater. We had COVID hit and the market dropped 20 points that month. It's one of those issues where with all this uncertainty, we want to make sure that your current investment portfolio is actually reaching the goals that you want to reach, and going back and having that analysis done of understanding what those goals are, number one, number two, and then stress testing the portfolio to make sure that it actually is going to accomplish what they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of that, really that deeper level of a stress test process, Bryon, it sounds like stress testing can be used to evaluate a handful of different things. Could you maybe share with us some of those key items in which this process can be utilized, and really the inner workings of the process itself?
Well, we'll put up a graphic here at this point of what a stress test, what we consider a stress test to have in consideration. But first of all, is understanding the goals that the clients are trying to accomplish and really getting into the weeds on that. And we even get down into the account level standpoint versus an overall holistic approach, because there's a major difference. I'm going to do different things in my Roth IRA compared to my money that's in my trust account that, is subject to capital gains. My Roth is going to be the last bucket of money I'm going to use. So if I'm going to take market risk, I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive there compared to my non-retirement monies. So, we get down into that level, but we want to make sure that the portfolio is accomplishing what the goals are for that particular bucket of money. Number one, we want to make sure that we've looked at, are there other strategies that could possibly be incorporated that we're not even considering in your current portfolio? And, let's take a look at some of those type of things and see how they would affect you overall. So we get into understanding what your performance has been, what the cost factors have been, what all of that has come into play. And then we look at other alternatives and what opportunities that may present and under different scenarios. And then we kind of help guide the client into modifying their current portfolio to what we would recommend and why. But we also want to take into consideration the tax ramification of that change, because you can't just go from A to B and not consider taxes, because when you get into retirement, unfortunately, taxes and healthcare are the two biggest expenses that you get. But unfortunately, most people never look at their tax returns when they're thinking about, changing investment from A to B or something like that.
Yeah, Brian, I mean, there's so many variables at play within the stresses and a lot to cover, which is why I know this process takes you and your team some time to get through and to go through with a given client. But let's talk about an example here, Brian. And this
Okay.
could be real life or even a hypothetical example at this point. But talk to me about why someone, may have been prompted to come see you and your team for a stress test in the first place. Do you have an example for us?
Well, we had a prospective client come in just a couple of weeks ago, and they came in with a portfolio, and when we did this independent portfolio review form, i.e. a stress test form, to kind of help them understand, we did a lot of questions and answers to help us understand what they were trying to accomplish. Then we looked into what they were actually doing, and it was interesting. There was a major disconnect, and it almost looked like their investment portfolio was mirroring what their prior or current advisor was trying to accomplish, but it wasn't anywhere close to what the goals that they wanted to accomplish. They had a lot more risk in their portfolio than what they really stated that they wanted or needed. And, it was, on a scale, they were probably going down the road at maybe 85 miles an hour using their current portfolio, but they've got an appetite that maybe they want to do about 30 or 35, and that there's a major difference there. And we wanted to kind of make some modifications to their portfolio to get them back on track with different financial tools to help them reach the goals overall that they stated that they wanted to accomplish.
Well, that's great to hear. And Brian, do you have maybe another story or an example of maybe a stress test that you've seen conducted that maybe even saved somebody from making a bad decision or continuing maybe, let's say, down that road that they thought was the right road and it wasn't? Any sort of example like that?
Well, we have an existing client that owns a very profitable business, and it's a family business that's been in the family for a long time. And as he has 4 children, and each one of those children worked in the business a little bit during their career. And, the patriarch of the family says, I got 2 children that are just pretty much worthless. They really just don't get it. They feel like they're entitled. He said, I've got a daughter that is really, really good, but unfortunately she really wants to help people. And she became a surgical nurse and had a nice career from that. So she didn't really want the business, but he had one son that really took to the business, and he's been actually running the business for the last 10 years and has actually taken it to a much higher level than where the dad had taken it. So when we looked at his distribution plan, the typical parent wants to be fair, equal distribution. 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. And that's exactly how his distribution plan was written. But he never took into consideration the effect that that would have on his business, which was his pride and joy. Okay. And so what we did was we restructured things to take into consideration the human element part of it, so that the son that has been running the business for 10 plus years and has done a very, very good job at that, he wasn't going to be saddled with three siblings that had a whole different mindset about how to run a business. They didn't really care. So by restructuring the total assets, we were able to basically assure that the son that's been in the business was going to get the business in total value without the three siblings, but at the same point, readjusting the assets so that the three siblings got an equal share. So the parent was able to do the fairness doctrine, equal distribution, but was going to do it at the sacrifice of the business. And that's a good example.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, keeping all parties happy, but within reason at the same time there. No, that's a great example, Bryon. And Bryon, in your eyes, the stress testing process, we've covered it. Obviously, there's a lot of moving pieces within this, but in your eyes, what are the keys to just making sure it's done well? Stress test can be done by many wealth managers, but what in your mind are those keys to be having it done well?
First of all, you've got to really understand the goals that the client's trying to accomplish. That's key and paramount. Anybody can take data and just say, hey, here's a portfolio that matches this, this, or this. And we can give you a series of questions and be able to identify some changes. But getting to know the client in their inner workings and what their goals and objectives are is very, very paramount in this strategy. So getting that profile down, then being able to identify, once we understand the goals that they're trying to accomplish, making sure that the portfolio reflects those goals in their fullest, both now and in the future. And then working with an advisor that's going to go back and constantly adjust over time. As the client's goals change, so should that portfolio. I'll use an example, typical, we'll have people go through the accumulation phase, where they're growing their money. Okay. It's like going up Mount Everest. Most people do a pretty good job on the accumulation side because it's all about whatever the money is at the time that I retire. But when you get into retirement, it's not about how much money I have now. It's about taking that money and using it in a format where I can get the highest payout of that, knowing that I've hedged for inflation and healthcare and taxes during my distribution side, and I know I'm not going to run out of money. That peace of mind is very, very key and critical. And people still think that they're accumulating in the retirement years when they're not. They're actually in the distribution phase, and they need to be using different financial tools at that time to be able to manage that process.
I love that. And obviously, hey, here we are on the show, the Retirement Playbook. We're going to get into some of those tools and those strategies in some future episodes. But stress testing being such a fundamental process that is utilized by your team and so many all over, that it's paramount that we covered it early here in the show. And Bryon, as we're kind of bringing our conversation on stress testing to a head here today, let's talk about it from the client's perspective. For those that are with us in the audience, I think that would be beneficial for them. Could you take me through how that stress testing experience might look like or feel like from the client's perspective? What kinds of questions would you and your team be asking them to kick things off?
Well, we pretty much have a nice, easy going conversation to help them warm up as to what it is that they're trying to accomplish, what's important to them, what are their values, what are their goals that they're trying to accomplish. And once we have an understanding of that and how money fits into that picture, then we can kind of take and say, okay, let's look at your investments currently and let's see if they're on track to help you reach those goals. Many, many times we find that clients are, like as I mentioned earlier, are running at 85 miles an hour when they really need to be doing 35, and using the right type of financial tools to be able to reduce that risk in the portfolio to where you've got a bucket of money that's going to throw off an income stream to cover your needs in retirement. That's critical. We want to make sure that money that you use in your retirement years to cover your living expenses are going to be coming from guaranteed sources of income. But then from there, we want to make sure that we've got this money on the side that's going to hedge for inflation and healthcare and those kind of things. And that's where the growth piece comes into play. So we want to make sure that we are using the right type of tool in the right situation for the right reason. So from a client's perspective, a lot of times their advisors don't have access to these financial tools that will allow you to participate in market gains, but never the market losses. And I can't stress that enough. Most financial advisors are stock jockeys. You got to be in the market, got to be in the market. And if you want to reduce the risk, we'll put you in a bond portfolio. And that 40-60 portfolio of 40% in bonds and 60% in the market, it just doesn't work anymore. So it doesn't give the client the guaranteed stream of income that they need to guarantee their living expenses through the rest of their lives, and also give them the hedge for inflation in the future. You can't do that with a bond and stock portfolio.
Roger that. And it sounds to me like on the flip side, once that stress testing process has been completed, they're walking out of your office with a full on assessment as to, hey, here's what we've reviewed. And here are some, I would imagine, do you provide some recommended steps forward on courses of action to take? Or how does the ending of that process work?
What we do is we're very anal about full disclosure. So we'll tell them,
Mm-hmm.
here are the advantages of doing this, but here are the disadvantages of this. And just because there's a disadvantage doesn't make it bad. It just means that, hey, we want to have that discussion ahead of time, that if we were using this bucket for an income stream and all of a sudden we had to go in and pull money out in a large lump sum, there would be a penalty for early withdrawal. We want to make sure you knew that before we actually said, oh my gosh, this is something new we didn't cover.
Sure.
So you want to give them the pros and the cons, but we want to help guide them to where they're better informed and educated to make the right decisions for their monies based upon the goals that they want to accomplish.
I love that. And Bryon, for those out there in our audience that are hearing this idea of the stress test, maybe for the first time even, and they're recognizing that value and they understand where it could maybe play a role in their own financial
Mhm.
well-being in their lives, maybe they're interested in reaching out to you and your team to just open up a dialogue, maybe even go through that stress testing process with you. What would be the best way that they could get in touch with you and your team to just start that conversation?
Well, they can always reach us at our office by calling 937-426-3836, or they can go to our website, spicerwealth.com, and be able to, get our contact information that way. But either way, we'd be more than happy to sit down with them. We do that as there's no cost in doing that independent portfolio review for them. We'll be able to give them an assessment of, are they on target to reach the goals that they're trying to reach? And, it's a way of giving back. So we're very, very proud to be able to do that.
Fantastic. Well, Bryon, look, you're a busy guy. You've got a company to run. We'll let you get back to your day, but I appreciate you carving some time out to jump on with us and walk through this idea of the stress test. Looking forward to being back with you on the next one.
All right. Thanks, Ryan.
Alrighty, thank you, Bryon. And hey, look, we want to take one final moment, as always, and thank you guys, our audience, for jumping aboard and being with us here on the show today. And if you liked today's conversation, maybe you took something away from it, do us a favor, hit that like button or subscribe to the show, whichever platform that you're checking us out on today. And then, of course, share this information with friends, family, business owners, anybody that you think would benefit from these types of conversations. Because I said it at the top of the show, and I'll say it again, we're bringing those conversations, the strategies and solutions that Bryon is working with his clients on a regular basis, and we're just bringing them right here to you guys on this show. So that being said, we've got a lot of great topics queued up for our future episodes, and we would hate to have you miss out on any of that beneficial information. So for Bryon, I'm Ryan. We're going to go ahead and say so long. We appreciate you being with us, and we'll see you next time on the Retirement Playbook.